They said I didn't deserve a cent, so I took it all without lifting a finger. I'm sitting here in what used to be my parents' house, my house now, and I can still hear my mother's voice echoing through these walls. You were always the disappointment, Sarah. Why would we leave you anything? Funny how things work out. Growing up, I was the shadow child. You know the type. The one who gets straight A's but never gets celebrated because that's just expected. The one who helps with dinner every night while your golden child brother gets to play video games because boys need their downtime. My parents, Linda and Robert Chen, had this way of making love feel conditional. Like you had to earn it every single day, and even then, it was never quite enough. Marcus was their prince. 2 years older, charming smile, played varsity football, had girlfriends calling the house constantly. When he got a C in algebra, Dad would say, "That's okay, son, math isn't for everyone." When I got an A- in calculus, Mom would ask why it wasn't an A+. The worst part? I kept trying to win their approval anyway. I remember being 12, staying up until midnight to finish this elaborate Father's Day card. Hand-drawn with all these little inside jokes and memories. I was so proud of it. Dad glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds, said, "Thanks, kiddo," and went back to watching Marcus's football highlights on his phone. Marcus got him a gas station gift card. Dad hung it on the refrigerator for 2 weeks. That's when something inside me started to harden. Not break, harden. Like a muscle that gets stronger from being worked too much. Mom had her own special way of cutting me down. She'd do it with concern, which somehow made it worse. "Oh, honey, are you sure you want to wear that? It's a little snug." Or, "Sarah's always been the responsible one. She doesn't need as much attention as Marcus." Responsible. Their code word for boring. I learned to be invisible. Straight A's became automatic. I got into Princeton on a full academic scholarship, worked summers at the law library, graduated summa cum laude. My parents came to graduation and spent the whole ceremony talking about how Marcus had just gotten promoted to assistant manager at his car dealership. The thing about being the responsible one is that people expect you to be grateful for scraps. They expect you to understand why you get less, need less, deserve less. I understood, all right. By the time I became a corporate lawyer in Manhattan, making more money than Dad ever did at his accounting firm, they still introduced me as our daughter Sarah. She's very focused on her career, like it was a character flaw. Meanwhile, Marcus, who'd gone through 3 jobs and 2 failed businesses, was finding himself and exploring his options. The signs were always there. When Grandma Chen died and left a small inheritance, Mom made sure it went toward Marcus's wedding. When Dad got his bonus one Christmas, it bought Marcus a down payment on his first house. When I asked for help with my student loans, just once, Dad said, "You're so good with money, Sarah, you'll figure it out." I did figure it out, I always did. But somewhere deep down, I guess, I still hoped that when it really mattered, when it came to the big moments, they'd finally see me. Really see me. I should have known better. The call came on a Tuesday morning in October. Dad's voice was shaky, smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Sarah, honey, I need to tell you something. The doctors found a mass in my liver. Cancer. Stage 3, maybe 4. They weren't sure yet. I was on a plane to San Francisco that afternoon. For the first time in my adult life, my parents needed me more than they needed Marcus. And God help me, I was grateful for it. Marcus, bless his heart, fell apart immediately. Couldn't handle hospitals, couldn't deal with insurance paperwork, couldn't even sit in the waiting room without having panic attacks. Mom spent half her time comforting him instead of focusing on Dad. But I could handle it. I'd been handling things my whole life. I took a leave of absence from my firm. 3 months, unpaid. I moved back into my childhood bedroom, sleeping in the same twin bed with the faded butterfly sheets. I drove Dad to every appointment, took notes during every consultation, researched every treatment option. I organized their medications. I fought with insurance companies. I learned the names of every nurse on the oncology floor, and for the first time, I felt like their daughter. Mom would make my favorite tea without me asking. Dad would pat my hand during chemo sessions and say, "I don't know what we'd do without you, sweetheart." They started asking about my life, my work, my apartment in the city. Marcus would visit on weekends, stay for a few hours, then escape back to his family. It's just too hard, he'd tell me privately. You're so much stronger than I am. I wasn't stronger. I was just used to being the one who stayed. During those long hospital nights, Dad and I would talk. Really talk. He told me about growing up poor, about how hard he'd worked to give us a better life, how proud he was of what I'd accomplished, even if he'd never been good at showing it. You know, Sarah, he said one evening, his voice hoarse from the latest round of chemo, you turned out exactly like me. Stubborn, practical, never willing to quit. Marcus, he's more like your mother. Heart on his sleeve, needs protecting. I should have heard the warning in those words. The treatments worked. Dad went into remission by Christmas. The whole family gathered for the holidays. Marcus and his wife, their 2 kids, all of us crammed around the dining room table like a Norman Rockwell painting. I remember thinking this was it. This was my reward for all those years of being overlooked. We were finally a real family. Mom pulled me aside after dinner. Sarah, honey, your father and I have been talking about the future, about our estate planning. We want to make sure everything's taken care of properly. My heart actually fluttered. Finally. Finally, they were going to acknowledge everything I'd done, everything I'd sacrificed. We're going to set up a meeting with our lawyer next month, she continued. There are some important decisions to make, and we want the whole family involved. I hugged her so hard she laughed. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, we do. It's time we faced reality. We're not getting any younger, and we want to make sure our wishes are crystal clear. I went back to New York the next week feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone rang constantly. Mom checking in, Dad asking about my latest case, both of them sounding genuinely interested in my answers. I started planning. Maybe I'd move back to California permanently. Maybe I'd buy a house nearby, help them as they got older. Maybe I'd finally have the relationship with my parents that I'd always wanted. Maybe I was finally enough. Chapter 3. The Betrayal. 800 to 900 words. The meeting was scheduled for February 14th. Valentine's Day. I thought that was sweet. Mom always did have a sense of occasion. I flew in the night before, took a cab straight from the airport to their house. The living room was exactly as I'd left it at Christmas, except for one thing. There were papers spread across the coffee table. Legal documents, thick and official looking. Oh, good, you're here, Mom said, not quite meeting my eyes. We wanted to go over everything before tomorrow. Marcus was already there, sitting in Dad's recliner with this strange expression on his face. Not guilty exactly. More like resigned. Go over what? I asked, setting down my overnight bag. Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, sit down. We need to talk. The will was 18 pages long. I read every word twice. The house I'd grown up in, the house where I'd spent 3 months taking care of them and was going to Marcus, the investment accounts, the retirement funds, the life insurance policies, all Marcus. I got the old Honda Civic in the garage in Mom's jewelry box. I don't understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Sweetheart, Mom began, and I could hear her practicing this speech in her head. Marcus has a family to think about. 2 children, a mortgage. You have your career, your apartment in Manhattan. You don't need... Need what? The words came out sharper than I intended. Need parents who actually value me? That's not fair, Dad said. This isn't about value. This is about being practical. You've always been so independent, so capable. Marcus, he needs more support. Independent. Capable. There were those words again. So, because I don't fall apart, because I don't need to be rescued every 5 minutes, I get nothing. You're getting something, Marcus said quietly. The jewelry alone is worth... Shut up. I turned to him and he actually flinched. Just shut up, Marcus. For once in your life, just shut up. I looked back at my parents. When did you decide this? Before Dad got sick? Or after I spent 3 months of my life taking care of you? Mom's face flushed. Sarah, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I stood up so fast the coffee table shook. I gave up my career for 3 months. I slept in a twin bed and drove you to chemo and fought with insurance companies and held your hand when you were scared. And this is what I get? You did that because you wanted to, Dad said. Because you love us, not because you expected payment. That's when I saw it. The real truth sitting there in his matter-of-fact tone. They had never, not once, considered that their treatment of me was unfair. In their minds, I was the strong one, the one who didn't need love or recognition or reward. I was supposed to give and give and give and be grateful for the privilege. Marcus was the one who needed protecting. I was just the tool they used to do it. You're right, I said, my voice deadly calm. I did it because I love you. I've spent my entire life trying to earn that love back. Sarah, Mom started. Number, I'm done. I picked up my bag. Enjoy your family meeting tomorrow. I'll be on a plane back to New York. Don't be like this, Dad said. You're part of this family. We love you. I stopped at the door, turned around one last time. No, you don't. You love what I do for you. You love how I make your lives easier, but you don't love me. Marcus finally spoke up. Sarah, that's not true. We all love. If you loved me, I interrupted, you would have given me half. Not because I need the money, but because I'm your daughter. Because 32 years of being the responsible one should count for something. I could see it in their faces then. The flicker of doubt, the moment they almost questioned themselves. Almost. Sarah, please, Mom said. You're upset. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you've had time to... To what? To accept it? To be grateful for the scraps again? I opened the door. The February air was cold against my face. You know what the funny thing is? I said, not looking back. I actually thought this time would be different. I thought maybe finally you'd see me as more than just the responsible one. Silence. Well, congratulations. You're about to find out just how responsible I really am. I closed the door behind me and walked to my rental car. My hands were steady as I started the engine. I didn't cry until I was on the freeway, and even then, it was only for a few minutes. Because I had work to do. The thing about being a corporate lawyer is that you learn to read documents very, very carefully. And the thing about reading documents very carefully is that you start to notice when things don't add up. I'd been handling my parents' insurance paperwork for months. I knew their financial situation better than they did. And something about that bothered me. Not just emotionally, but legally. So I made some calls. Turns out dear old Marcus had been busy during Dad's illness. While I was playing nursemaid, he'd been playing financial advisor. 3 large withdrawals from Dad's investment account, all signed off on by a man undergoing chemotherapy. A new life insurance policy with Marcus as the sole beneficiary, signed the day after Dad's worst treatment cycle. A quitclaim deed transferring the house title, dated just 2 weeks after Dad's cancer diagnosis. Elder abuse. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Fraud. In California, it's a felony. I didn't call them. I didn't threaten or demand or make a scene. I just did what I do best. I worked. I gathered evidence. I cross-referenced dates with medical records. I documented Dad's mental state during chemotherapy, his confusion, his memory lapses. I found the legal precedents, the case studies, the statutes. Then I filed a complaint with the state. The investigation took 4 months. 4 months of silence from my family, 4 months of pretending to focus on my regular caseload, while this beautiful, terrible justice machine ground slowly forward. The call came on a Thursday. Ms. Chen, this is Detective Morrison with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. We've completed our investigation into your complaint against Marcus Chen. They'd found enough evidence to file charges. The quitclaim deed was invalid, signed under duress by a man whose judgment was compromised by medical treatment. The insurance policy changes were fraudulent. The investment withdrawals were unauthorized and would be returned to the estate. But here's the beautiful part. Because Marcus had used his position as Dad's financial advisor to exploit him during a vulnerable time, and because Mom had been complicit by co-signing several documents, they were both facing felony charges. which meant under California law, they were both disqualified from inheriting anything from the estate they'd tried to steal. The whole thing unraveled in a week. Marcus's lawyer called me first. "Ms. Chen, my client would like to discuss a settlement." Then Mom called, sobbing. "Sarah, please, there's been a misunderstanding. We never meant... We can fix this. We can change the will back." Then Dad, quiet and defeated. "Sarah, sweetheart, can we talk? Please?" I let them all go to voicemail. The criminal charges were just the beginning. Once the state invalidated their fraudulent transactions, the original estate plan kicked back in. The one they'd had before Marcus's little intervention. The one where everything was split equally between the children. But here's where it gets interesting. Because of the felony charges, Marcus was disqualified from inheriting. And because Mom had been complicit, she was disqualified too. Which left me, the sole heir to an estate worth $1.8 million. I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't have to fight or argue or beg. The law did it for me. Beautiful, impartial, absolute justice. The house, the investments, the life insurance, all of it. They left me out of the will, and I left them with nothing. I'm writing this from what used to be Dad's study. Same oak desk, same leather chair, same view of the garden where Mom used to grow roses. They're all wilted now. No one's been taking care of them. Dad died 6 months after the legal proceedings concluded. Cancer came back, aggressive and fast. He spent his last weeks in a state-funded hospice because the money they'd tried to steal, well, it wasn't available to them anymore. Mom calls sometimes. She's living with Marcus now in his cramped rental apartment. 3 adults and 2 kids in a 2-bedroom place. She never asks for money, never begs. Just calls to tell me about the weather, about what she had for lunch, about TV shows she's watching. Like we're friends who just happen to not see each other very often. Marcus doesn't call at all. People ask me if I feel guilty, if I regret what I did, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. For 32 years, I was the responsible one. The one who didn't need love, or recognition, or fairness. The one who was supposed to give everything and expect nothing. They thought they could write me out of their lives like I was never there. Like those 3 months of holding Dad's hand and fighting with insurance companies and sleeping in a twin bed meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. They were wrong. I kept the jewelry box, by the way. It sits on my nightstand now, filled with the earrings and necklaces Mom wore when I was little. Sometimes I open it just to hear the music box play that tiny, tinkling melody, but I never wear any of it. I don't need their jewelry to remember who I am. I'm Sarah Chen. I'm 33 years old. I own a $1.8 million estate in San Francisco, and I earned every penny of it by being exactly what they always said I was. Responsible. They thought I'd forgive them, but I was too busy living the life they tried to steal.